Greetings as always to those of you who tune in audio or video with YouTube. Welcome. And another welcome to those of you who are here with us today on this beautiful snowy white morning on Magic Mountain. The subject for today's chapel, one-word title is the word mystery. And I have a way into the subject. This is a subject that added to the rotation of chapel topics a few years ago. And I didn't originally add it. We had been fortunate to have a chaplain come on the team here for spiritual care, a Roman Catholic priest whose name was Jim Garvey. Jim has now employed in another setting. But Jim served here for almost exactly a year and made an impact that would be hard to overstate. It was a great gift to have Jim here. And one of the things he did do a couple of times in his year here was substitute for the presiding at chapel. And I think the very first time that Jim was covering for me while I was away, I offered him the topic in the rotation of the calendar, and he said, "Do you mind if I do something different?" I said, "No, go, have at it." And he said, "I think I want to do something on mystery." I thought, wow, that's a great subject. And I want to explain, first of all, a little bit of why, and then get into it. The journey that I've had from atheist to pastor, then advanced theological education, and then chaplaincy with serving churches for about 15 years in the middle of that, all of that is part of my addiction recovery. Yeah, I did say atheist, that's where I started, has been amazing. And I have been privileged to study in various settings with some amazing people at a depth that very few people get to sort of probe. And one of the things I'm incredibly grateful for are Roman Catholic encounters along that path. I did grow up in a Roman Catholic family, and I no longer identify myself as an active member of the Roman Catholic tradition, although it's like, I think the only thing one can become is post-Catholic. I think you can't un-Catholic yourself. And that's sort of like you can't shed all of Judaism or whatever. Like there's just some of these things that have so much cultural significance in how shaping who one is that, at least in my case, that's how it feels. Anyway, on to mystery in the Roman tradition. So I studied in a PhD program at Catholic University in Washington, D.C., and my studies there were in systematic theology and the study of liturgy, which is a churchy word, but means the church's ritual life. So things like communion, baptism, anointing of the sick, even foot washing, the rituals that the churches use to mark rites of passage and those kinds of things. And it was a very esoteric and beautiful and interesting time in my life. I got really interested in the nature of ritual and what does it do and how does it do it. And I'm an analytical thinker by nature. That's where I started with my atheisms. I found it difficult to have belief in a higher power that was not able to be, fully explained and documented, but something moved me past that. It's the heart of where we're going here today. Anyway, I'm in this Catholic, one of the most esteemed academic institutions of the Roman tradition around the world, and especially even in the United States. And I learned a word there, which is called mystagogy. Mystagogy is the academic term to describe the study of liturgy, especially in the Roman academic world. So, and what is meant by mystagogy is that in studying of like a wedding ritual or a communion rite or a baptismal rite, with a mystagogical perspective, what you're trying to do is reveal a mystery rather than explain it away. Just sort of by paying attention to the words and actions and the history and the development of the rite and the practice and also like an anthropologist, whatever, but not. There's a presumption in that Roman tradition that there is a mystery in there, and that by studying it, you're just going to see it more deeply, like looking at a jewel and getting the microscope and seeing it doesn't make it not a jewel, it just helps you see how the light refracts and all that stuff. So mystagogy, and when my friend Father Jim Garvey said, "I want to do mystery at chapel," I was like, oh, that's in my academic lane, and I really like it. So second stopping place on the way to where I want to get is my dad. My dad was an academician also. He was a humanities scholar, actually French literature, but also studied, philosophy and English lit and all that stuff. He was a super smart guy. And he taught me about a phrase and a person, a 19th century poet and philosopher named Samuel Taylor Coleridge. And my guess is if I asked for hands to go up, not a lot of you would be, oh yeah, I love Coleridge. But anyway, Samuel Taylor Coleridge is known in the history of, I know I'm getting way too heady here, but I'll land the plane, I promise. In the history of literature for a notion that he called poetic faith. And I love this idea that and there was a phrase associated with the explanation of what he meant by poetic faith. What Coleridge meant by poetic faith was that this kind of faith required, this is the phrase, willing suspension of disbelief. Really into this phrase, willing suspension of disbelief. And the usual way this gets explained in an English lit class is in theater. So I always think about my times when I've had the privilege of going to Broadway plays, and I love going to Broadway. I don't know if any of you like going to Broadway. And you sit in the theater, the comfy chair, these old theaters with all this gold and all that sort of stuff around, and they're selling wine in the back for $19 a glass, and you're waiting, and the curtain's there, and you're paying attention to the theater and thinking about its history and all that sort of stuff, and then the curtain opens. And typically in the first few minutes, most of us take in various details. We might notice, if you're sitting close enough, you notice the makeup on the actors, and you see there's a prop that is meant to conjure like a living room or whatever. It's not an actual living room, but you realize, oh no, I'm in a living room scene. There's a single table and there's people sitting at the table and all that. And so you're very aware at the very beginning of the artifice of it, of the fact that it's a constructed replication of a moment. But by the time you get to the end of the play, if you're like me and it's King Lear, you're bawling because Cordelia is dead. Or if it's, and I like Shakespeare, so if it's, Juliet and Romeo, and at the end, not to be too bad of a spoiler, but he's dead and she's alive, and you're like, what? And your, heart is ripped out, and what's happened is what Coleridge is talking about. You have willingly suspended your disbelief, right? You have entered the mystery. On my day, Friday and Saturday, I got to spend snow days with my wife, Judy. I talk about her all the time. If she had any idea, she'd be so mad. But anyway, we were snuggled up and watching this movie. And at the end of this stupid old movie, I'm crying. Oh, I can't believe it. Ashley Judd is reunited with her estranged son in Double Jeopardy. A great play. And I mean, the tears are just rolling out because I have willingly suspended my disbelief and entered into the mystery. Into the mystery. And I see heads nodding. So you know what this is. So I have this beef, not referencing the recent TV series, but I have this as a chaplain coming here. And I have it with myself, actually. I think this is one of the reasons why it really bothers me, is I'm actually sort of the poster child for this issue. Is at the very beginning of my recovery, I was like, you're not going to get me to believe in a higher power unless you can tell me what it is. I was unwilling to suspend my disbelief. And here I am. I'm 12 years of advanced theological education in. I can trot out all the explanations. I can give you the Pascal wager thing, and I can give you the Heidegger, Kant, blah, 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 and the Tillich, and I love this stuff. But I want to point out something about those of you, because there are probably people in the audience here who are wearing a wristband, so there are patients, and maybe even their loved ones, who are being invited to entertain the possibility that spirituality is either important or even central to the journey forward out of struggle and into flourishing that Caron is all about. So let me say that again. I deeply believe that spirituality is not only actually important, but I believe it's central to getting from the awful to the we are at least able to like breathe, much less to get to the point where we are, Alcoholics Anonymous calls it happy, joyous, and free. And when I meet a person who has 2, 5, 10, 15 years of abstinence, but they are kind of freaking miserable, it makes me sad, because what I believe is that they are missing this thing that I'm talking about. Because there's a weird thing that happens, is that somehow out of the misery into the renunciation, that's a Buddhist principle. You're renouncing this thing that you think is your joy, and it's like, oh, I'll never get to drink again, I never get to shoot heroin again, I never get to go to a crack house again, I never get to puke in the Christmas tree of the family again. You know, like, get real about it, people. Like, really? Are you like that worried about losing the DUIs and the, you know, look at your checkbook and like, you know, it's a very expensive affliction, socially, spiritually, and financially, that many of us found ourselves clinging to with desperation and championing, and thinking of treatment as like an attack on our security zone. But then there's people like Reverend Jack and all these like recovering, you know, happy-go-lucky people who are like, it's a spiritual solution, man. Which sounds like we're smoking way too much weed, right? And I believe it is. And where I was in 1989 when I began my abstinence was in this desire to have that explained to me. Okay, all right, show me. Tell me how that works. There's a thing, you can tell I've had way too much schooling. There's a thing called Zeno's paradox. I don't know if you know what it is. The Zeno's paradox is an ancient Greek sort of observation that if you think about like me getting over the piano, and in order for me to get to the piano, I'm going to go halfway to the piano. Then I get halfway to the piano, so I'm standing on the cello. And then I'm going to go halfway between where I am and to the piano, so I go to like first of the two monitors on the floor. And then I go halfway again, halfway again, halfway again. In that case, if that's my method to achieve a destination, I'll never get there, right? Because there's always another halfway. Which is absurd, because I can just walk over to the freaking piano. This is why people do philosophy should get a grip. Like, land the plane, people. But I love philosophy. So Zeno's and it's actually relevant here. Why? Because here's what I want to say. If I trot out an explanation, if I pull my notes over and I say, this is an explanation for the spirituality of recovery and the nature of higher power, and I'm telling you this has worked for tons of people, you can read it and come up with an argument. I can move you halfway to the wall, but you'll have an argument. Now I have to entertain the argument, and I can have a counter-argument. I move you another half the distance. The argument never goes away. There's never an argument that doesn't invite a counter-argument. Just ask a lawyer. Or ask a logician. Like, this is the nature of propositional reasoning. One of my great professors, Kendall Solon, who I've mentioned so many times here, I remember him sitting in front of the class, and he's like talking about people who talk around philosophy but don't offer a proposed truth claim. And Kendall was like, give me a truth claim. Let's enter the debate. Because if you want to enter the debate, what you want to do is enter debate. And it means you don't understand that entering debate does not get us to answers. It just gets us to deeper debate. Because this is an unprovable issue, and it's a matter of faith. And that's a really hard thing for the explain person. Except, this is my beef. Do you require that of your loving relationship? When you go on the first date or whatever, do you require an explanation for the cortisol and the oxytocin or whatever? I'm not going to kiss the girl until I understand what the hell is going on inside of me. I don't know that person yet. Don't lie to yourself. Love is a mystery. I've been in love with Judy for 20 plus years, and I have not got it figured out. Just ask me over the last couple months. We had a great weekend this weekend, but I don't know. I was completely lost here. 2 weeks ago, I'm like, how do we get out of this? And then, poof, here we are. We had a great weekend with Double Jeopardy and, whatever. Thank you, Ashley Judd. And it wasn't Ashley Judd. It was It was the fact that this is not this doesn't lend itself to evidence. It does not lend itself. If I were to say to Judy, I've gone to the class and I know the exact way to do conflict resolution and let's do it, she would punch me in the face. And she would say, take your psychology hat off, because she is wise enough to know that this is not a thing that should be asked to become an erector set, right? It's not a thing that you build and structure. And a lot of medicine isn't either. You think when you go to the doctor that they use algorithms and they do all that sort of stuff, but it's way messier than this lie that we tell ourselves about, medicine being so algorithmic and analytical. Just get really sick and figure out how much art there is to it and how much trial and error it is. And people will say, 60% of the patients respond to this medication. What if I'm in the 40 that didn't, right? And that's what happens, is now you're in the 40 that didn't. So then they're like, let's try something else. And SSRIs for mental health disorders, it's just, a lot of this stuff is, I hate to use a gambling metaphor, it's a crapshoot. And so even things that we tell ourselves are analytical and evidence-based, actually evidence-based is just statistics. It's not certainty. Evidence-based statistics is not certainty. People who say, I want an evidence-based solution, are just asking, give me the thing that 60% were helped instead of 40%. That's what that real question is. That's how that gets translated into choices that systems make about what interventions they use and deliver. Which sadly means if you're in the 40%, you're going to have to try the 60% solution before, even if your doc has a good intuition that they should go off the mainstream because you're weird. So, I have a point and I need to shut up. The point is, I'm standing in front of you, and 2 weeks ago, my boss gave me a coin to mark 35 years of sobriety. I would like to tell you I can prove it. The further I go into my journey of abstinence, the more I know it does not depend on me. Thank you for the applause, but it's a frickin' mystery. Because I'm a sick. I'm a danger to myself. The old AA thing, when I'm between my ears, I'm behind enemy lines. I hate to tell you how true that is. Just as ridiculous, stupid, small illustration, I came back from the grocery store, and Judy's unpacking the groceries, and there's a Reese's peanut butter cup in there. And she laughs indignantly, and I'm like, yeah, couldn't help myself. Couldn't help myself. And that thing was so delicious. I got a dopamine rush. Me an addict? No. Me a craving? Nah. 35 years, they're all gone. I fixed that. No, I have not. This is a mystery. And those of you who are sitting in the chair, yearning to see what you're about to see 9 people come up here and mark milestones that are actually well-nigh impossible. Who would tell you? Nobody would have bet on Ed and Coop getting 9 years. No one would have bet on that. No one would have bet on Mike coming up here for 45 years of sobriety. What? I bet, I didn't know him 45 years ago, but I'm pretty sure he was a danger to himself and others, right? And because that's what this is. And if you require it to be explained before you take the ride, you are making a huge mistake. You can just kiss the girl. You can just take the moment. You can just leap into the not knowing and let it happen. Instead of using some ostensible requirement for an explanatory framework which will reduce this thing right out of its mystery to be given to you and take its beauty away. Because if somebody gives you that, they're not giving you what I'm talking about. They're giving you rules and structure. Forget rules and structure a little bit. I mean, it's all good. I don't mean that. Sorry, you guys are going to use that against me. But the rules and structure follow and precede. They're part of the journey. Just like for the Catholic person, it's go to the assembly and listen and experience it, come and this is what we say and do it. People make so much fun of that tradition because it's kneel, sit, stand. But those are the rubrics. Those are the mechanisms by which a mystery is experienced. And meetings, sponsorship, steps, prayer, meditation, abstinence. are the ladder by which you get through the window into another world. So welcome to the mystery. Welcome to the mystery. Don't try to explain it too much. Don't try to figure, because I think that comes from fear. It's scary to stop. But it can be done. We're about to go forward into more music, prayers, and anniversary celebrations. It's going to be a great job. Thank you so very much.